How's it going, guys? Philip Gregory here with Philip Gregory Speaks. Doing a new series of videos. I wanted to touch on in each video one of the arguments for the existence of God. Really, any arguments for the existence of God are a moot point, in my opinion, concerning talking about religion or doctrine or any of the things, or if someone has the authority to tell you who to sleep with, for example, because no one can prove or disprove the existence of God, and anybody that is absolutely confident of that should be the first person that you question, that you're skeptical of, and that goes for non-believers or believers. But I find that most of the time it is the believer who is the one sitting in certainty that God does exist, and also that they know who that God is and what that God prescribes for people on earth. But to talk about the cosmological argument, it'll be the first argument we go through. I want to go through each of these, starting with the cosmological argument, and show how many times they're taken as logical, and many times Christian apologetics or any kind of theologian goes through these, and they blow through the premises and things, and then they jump to talking about God. And if you look at these arguments on a surface level, a lot of them seem to make a lot of sense, and that's one thing I'll be talking about in my book, is the difference between common sense, what sounds good and what seems to make sense to your mind, and what's actually logical. And so if you look at the cosmological argument, it's not logically sound. It's not ship tight. It has holes, and but a lot of times there's a lot of people in debates that are proposing this argument as the end-all explanation for the existence of God, and somehow they get from that to even the Hebrew God of the Christian Bible. So let me just summarize real quick the argument itself. Basically, it goes like this. The premise one, and there's different versions of this. There's William Lane Craig, who's you guys have probably heard of him. A Christian. He's a Christian, but he's also a philosopher, PhD in philosophy, which blows my mind that he uses this. But he has a reduced version called the Cosmological Argument that only has two premises, which he's reduced down. But either way, even if you use the additional premises of the usual cosmological argument or his, it fails on both counts the same way. But I'm going to use the more common one before William Lane Craig came up with his version, which is also common to other people. But anyway, long story. That's a history of the cosmological argument we won't get into. But basically, it goes like this. Every finite and contingent being. Okay, so that means a being that could not exist. It could very well just as well not exist as to exist, but does exist. Every one of those beings has some sort of cause. Okay, William Lane Craig's summary of this is there's never nothing that, or there's never something that comes out of nothing. Everything that is came from something, is what he's saying. Then another premise is that a causal loop cannot exist, meaning there is no not everything that has been caused, or how do I phrase this? Not everything has been caused to exist by something else. So in other words, there has to be, if you go back far enough, if you regress far enough, there has to be that one uncaused being that, or thing, or event that caused all the other effects, right? It caused all the other things to cause each other. And so that's there can't be a causal loop. And so, also it says, some people add in, and William Lane Craig doesn't get this detail, but some people add in that a causal chain can't be of infinite length, and I think they add that in because you could get into an infinite regress. So that's a little stipulation in there that it has to end somewhere, it has to be terminated somewhere, and that termination happens with the uncaused causer, right? So that's a quick summary. William Lane Craig's is only two premises, which is just that something can't come from nothing, and that that we know the universe has, because and this is true. This is definitely true, that we know the universe had a beginning, and so then it must have been caused by something. And then he says that something, that uncaused causer, is God, right? That has to be God. And so he says this proves the existence of God, right? Well, there's several problems with this. First of all, just one offhanded, if you just think about it for a few seconds, the argument sets it up with stipulations and says everything must have a first cause, right? So everything that's contingent, like I read, has to have this first cause. But for some reason, the Christian apologetics don't have any problem with God not having a first cause. And so that's kind of almost a special pleading, where they set up the premises where one is exempt from the rest of the argument. And so if you get into saying, how do we end this infinite regression going back? Well, we'll use God. We'll use the idea of God. So if we use God to answer that question, why does something exist rather than nothing, then we can always just ask, why does God exist rather than nothing? Why, who made God? Why is God here? So, and why did, and then you can go into why did he make the universe and all that stuff. And so it's the same, if you apply the same rules to the question of the universe and to the existence of all life, that you do to God, and uniformly, then you can always ask, well, why does he exist rather than nothing, or she, or whatever gods? The other thing is that we got to ask ourselves, is the premise two from William Lane Craig's, and also one of the premises out of this one, but that not everything has been caused to exist by something else, so no causal loop. Is that true? We have to ask ourselves that there must be a first cause and uncaused cause. This one, on the surface common sense, you would say, well, of course there can't be something out of nothing. But the more we find out about science, the more we find out we don't know anything about anything. Our experiences in life and our reasoning capabilities are only so much, and there's only so many things we can do. And everything that we have, these model-dependent realities in our head, all these models are built from observable things around us. And so, for example, to someone who didn't know what the sun was back when, before we knew anything about science, they would look at that and say, this powerful thing that gives life and warmth to us and is the reason why we exist, it must be God, because they don't have the answer for what that is. And so they create an answer and they give it a name and they give it a religion, because they don't understand it. Well, we don't understand, and the scientists will admit this. We don't understand or try to claim that we know exactly how the universe originated. We know that, or we think that the Big Bang happened, and then that was the beginning. But we don't know exactly what caused the Big Bang, or we don't even know what the state of the universe was like at the time of the Big Bang. There's things, I lost the name of it. There's virtual molecules, that pop in and out of existence all the time, uncaused. And William Lane Craig and other people will say, well, no, it's not uncaused, that the conditions are set up for that to happen, and so on and so forth, or that it's not actually nothing. And that type of nothing is exactly what the scientist means when they say the universe came from nothing. Of course, there was something, and there was a condition set up for that to happen. Now, do we know why the universe popped into existence? No. And if it popped out of absolutely nothing, meaning nothing, void, nothing, no existence, is that totally impossible? No, that's also not impossible, because we don't know enough about the origins of the universe or enough about physics to even begin to answer those questions. Some of the things we do answer, like evolution and natural selection, we can confidently say have taken place, because those are biological processes here on Earth that we can observe, we have evidences for. Unlike abiogenesis, which tries to explain how life originated, which are two different things. And how life originated, we don't yet have the answers to. So, is premise 2 true? Not everything has been caused to exist by something else. There can't be any causal loop. We don't know. And so that's a stipulation put into the premise, that the premise itself is making a claim that it can't hold up any evidence to make. there is no one that can say it's impossible to have a causal loop. It's not logically impossible to have a causal loop, because we don't know. We don't know what's logically possible in the beginning stages of the universe. Now, the other thing is premise one: something cannot come into being uncaused from absolutely nothing. That also is another area where we can say, how do we know that? Based on our experiences and the science we have, that's what it looks like. But quantum levels of existence are completely different, and we're just beginning to get into that. On our opinions, and are notoriously erroneous. They're notoriously wrong. And so, because what we think should happen rarely happens on the quantum level, then we should be very careful about making a claim something cannot come into being uncaused from absolutely nothing, because you never know, maybe it could. But those are some little areas of discrepancy, and that's fine. But the biggest problem with the cosmological argument is not those. The biggest problem with the cosmological argument is this. If you accept all of these premises, if you say, okay, well, that's outlandish, maybe the idea of something popping into existence and we don't know why is too abstract for you, so you accept the claims of the premise that someone gives you on the cosmological argument. Okay, that's fine, because with common sense it seems to be good. But none of these premises and the conclusion, even if they're all correct, say that the first cause has to be God. Nothing about this argument proves the existence of God in any way. If it was to prove anything, it would prove that there was a first cause and that there had to be an uncaused causer for everything else that came into existence. But that doesn't mean that it's a personal God. That doesn't mean that it's a creator God. That doesn't mean that it's any kind of personality or intellect. It doesn't mean that it's the Hebrew God of the Bible, and it surely doesn't mean that we know anything about that God or the commandments for how we're supposed to live our life, who we're supposed to sleep with, how much alcohol we're supposed to drink. All of those giant leaps from trying to prove a first cause to religion, or to the personality and description of God that we're given and we're supposed to accept, are massive leaps in logic. If this argument proved anything, which it doesn't, but if it did, it does nothing to prove the existence of a personal creator. It does nothing to prove anything of any sort of God. It could be an unmoved, unintelligent first cause. It could be multiple uncaused gods that caused it. It could be a one uncaused God that isn't the God of the Hebrew Bible, but that is the God of whatever, Islam, right? Or which is one and the same, but they make a distinction. So it could be many things, and it does not follow that if this argument is true, that God, as we're being told by Christian apologetics and other religious people, is that first cause. There's no evidence anywhere that proves that. So, in quick summary, I'm just kind of blowing through these, but quick summary for the cosmological argument is we've gone over a couple of problems, and one is that can we accept premise one, and can we accept premise two, that something cannot come into being uncaused from absolutely nothing, and that not everything has been caused to exist by something else. Can we accept those? Maybe, maybe not. But even if we do, it doesn't prove the existence of God. Even if we do, it doesn't say anything about who God is, the nature of God, or any attributes about God. So the cosmological ultimately fails to prove anything about a supernatural creator. Now, there's other arguments for God, like the teleological argument. There's the argument from experience, or the argument from experience, argument from existence, all these different things, and a priori reasoning and things like that. I'm going to get to all those in other videos. But basically, what I'm getting at here is that arguing for the existence of God is really a kind of a separate philosophical venturing that has nothing to do with whether or not the supernatural claims of the Bible are true. Just because even if you can prove a first cause, it doesn't prove anything about the God, and even if you could prove that one of the miracles in the Bible were true, it doesn't prove that the other ones were, and it doesn't prove that the person performing them was the Son of God. It doesn't prove anything about the nature of the God who sent him. So these are things that people blow through the premises. They sound good, and they use these in debates, and they use these in talking and convincing people to join their religions, because the logic is pretty good. It's close to good, but they're missing all the details. And then once you kind of accept this cosmological argument, then they leap you to, oh, and by the way, that God is the Jewish God of the Bible. Which, how did they get there? I don't know. But and that's why people get wrapped up in this argument. They believe it, and then they tend to believe the next thing that's said because of they're impressed by the intellect or the logical capabilities of the person that's presenting it. Okay, but it doesn't prove anything. It doesn't prove anything at all. So we got to be really careful of the cosmological argument and the other arguments, which I'll go through in each video. We'll discuss where those fail, and all of them ultimately fail to prove any existence of God. And that will wrap back into the umbrella of what I'm writing about here, and what I'm blogging about, and why I'm spending my time on this, which is if you can't prove those things, if you don't have any evidence for those things, and you don't have any logical conclusions that prove your claims, then you can't be running around with certainty. You can't be up on the scale like we talked about in the other video of doubt and claims, up here on the giant, massive astronomical claim without exceptional evidence. You simply can't do that, and it shouldn't be allowed to happen. And so the cosmological argument is another example of where people have something that sounds good, that makes common sense, that they muster for ammo for their arsenal, to postulate their religious beliefs, but in the end, it's not any ammo at all. It's not. It doesn't hold up at all. And so if it doesn't, then we can't be running around using those things. So I'll get into more of that later. Thank you for listening. That was a little brief, quick rundown of the cosmological argument and some of the failings of it. And there are more, but those are the major problems that I have with it. And saying that this proves any kind of creator. Next, we'll go to the teleological argument. Teleological argument, and then we'll go to the I think I'm going to do the teleological argument first, and then we'll come back to a priori reasoning. I think is what I'm going to do, because I want to talk about can you trust just your own reasoning on specifically subjects like the existence of God and abstract supernatural things that are outside of the natural realm, and can that type of reasoning be relied on? So anyway, sorry for the rambling here at the end, but look forward to the next videos as I go through these other arguments and point out the failings of those, and then at the end I'll talk about why I'm going through these and what this has to do with the rest of the book and the rest of the video blogs. Thanks for watching. I'm Philip Gregory with Philip Gregory Speaks.